On today's show, we'll complete our look back at NHL drafts of days gone by. This is 2019, where Ottawa gave up a 4th overall pick, but still came out with a top 10 player.
We're going to take a look at all the players the Sens selected in this draft, and we're going to redraft the top 10 the way we see fit.
I think it's going to get pretty contentious. That's all coming up on today's Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can also follow us on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter and LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. We are free and available everywhere you get podcasts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe to help the show grow. Today is Friday, August 9th, and Pilsy loved the feedback from last week's look back at the 2018 draft, so much so that we're going to do it again. This is as close as we're going to get, though. 5 years, that's a good amount of time to let the draft evolve as it should.
Yeah, and then it's going to be nice, Ross. Every year, we can look back at another year's draft. So next offseason, we'll take a look at the 2020 draft. I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun. Certainly a different vibe for the Ottawa Senators and for the whole league than the 2019 draft.
And just because they decided to give up that top 5 pick in the 2018 or 19 draft because they kept and made the selection correctly, I should add, of Brady Tkachuk being that guy 4th overall to get the rebuild kickstarted. But that didn't make it any harder to watch the draft lottery when Ottawa finished dead last in the standings in 2018-19. And we knew that they weren't going to pick until Columbus is because they got Matt Duchene. It was the whole Matt Duchene flipperoonie. The 4th overall pick and what ended up being the 19th overall pick were both traded for Matt Duchene.
That's crazy to think of. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that little wrinkle.
It was tough to watch. But the lottery balls helped the Senators in a psychological way. It didn't matter one way or another, whether it was 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th.
No, it mattered. I mean, you can't change anything, but man, if Ottawa would have finished dead last that year, 31 out of 31 teams, and then the lottery ball would have given the Colorado Avalanche 1st overall. Oh, man, I don't know what I would have done. So that was the hockey gods being like, look, you guys deserve this. We're just going to keep it 4th for 4th. Nice and easy. Nice and clean.
Very clean, especially Jack Hughes goes 1st overall. No spoilers. He goes 1st in a redraft as well. He's a hell of a player, and he's got the family friend connection with the Brady Tkachuks, or the Tkachuk family and Brady. So just missing on that chemistry would have been pretty tough, no doubt.
And imagine Jack Hughes going to Colorado. Oh my God, that's a team that was, they had second centerman problems ever since Kadri left. That would have solved those problems. And then they would have got his brother Luke Hughes as well, because, those two were sticking together. So, oh, man.
Seriously. Well, they were already deep in the playoff mix by the time Luke Hughes went in 2021. But looking at that 2019 top 5, it's Jack Hughes and then a number of question marks still.
Yeah, that was not a very good top-heavy draft. And then you had the New York Rangers, who somehow get the 2nd overall pick, because I believe what place did they finish? So that would have been what,
18-19. I think they just missed the playoffs. They moved up a number of spots. If memory serves me correctly, they actually put in a rule that you could only move up 10 spots after this.
So they actually finished pretty low in the overall standings. In the conference, they were 12th. But
okay.
Still, they were 20 points out of a playoff spot. So they were still bad, but they weren't Ottawa Senators bad.
I must be thinking about Lafreniere.
I think that's the one you are thinking of. Yeah.
Okay, so the New York Rangers get second overall. They take Capo Caco. Chicago steps up, drafts Kirby Doc at third overall. Colorado, with Ottawa's pick, takes Bowen Byram from the Vancouver Giants in the WHL. And then Alex Turcotte goes fifth to the LA Kings. I mean, looking back, the price could have been higher. And interesting that both the third and fourth overall picks have been traded in this draft already.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and it's tough because Kirby Doc is a good player, and I think especially when you're looking at this crop of players, he's pretty solid. But again, you look at the injuries, and the injuries have really limited his potential to properly develop. And I mean, he's with the Montreal Canadiens right now, so we're not rooting for him too much. But that's a guy that if he gets some health, he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, he's got that power playmaker style where he's really good at dishing it, but can also hold his own physically when healthy. Then at number 6, and this draft was in Vancouver, audible gasp for Steve Yzerman's first pick as Detroit Red Wings general manager, Moritz Seider. That turned out to be a good pick. Then Buffalo makes another good pick with Dylan Cousins being selected. Close your eyes, Oilers fans. Plug your ears. Maybe mute us for the next 20 seconds. But they pass on Trevor Zegras, who goes 9 to Anaheim, for Philip Broberg. Now, look, Trevor Zegras is a flawed NHL player. There's no doubt about that. At this point in his career, still young, but he has that X-factor skill that you could just picture fitting in perfectly with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, although I think it's a good thing he went to Anaheim, Ross, because I feel like he's the type of player and prospect, maybe with some time and maturity, he'll change, but he was a flashy, exciting player. Maybe not necessarily a guy, if you're a playoff team and you're a team like the Oilers trying to contend for the cup, you're like, we need that guy on our team. You know what I mean? And that probably sounds like a diss to Zegras. I'm not meaning it that way. I just mean there's guys that have the flash and skill that are great in rebuilding regular seasons, but don't necessarily translate to a hard 7-game series.
Well, funny you say that because my mind goes directly to another former Edmonton Oiler. Remember Linus Omark? Remember he was a shootout? He did that spinorama
Linus
on Omark.
Oh, I was like, yeah, I know Linus Omark.
It's a close name. No, Linus Omark.
Okay, I don't remember him.
Okay, you definitely remember the one move he did where he did a spinorama with the puck on a penalty shot or on a shootout. And it was like, it was all flash. And he had a couple unreal
How'd
years
that go
after.
for him? I don't remember the highlight.
Linus Omark shootout. That's so funny. Cheeky shootout goal, they call it. It was in his first NHL game.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay. So that was talking Linus Omark. We'll be doing plenty of talking Linus Ullmark on Locked On Sens.
Wow, that's close. Holy.
That is close. Then Vasily Podkolzin to Vancouver, the 10th overall pick there. So when you look at that top 10 compared to 2018, how different is both the top end talent and the overall strength?
Worlds apart, Ross. And that's why if you guys listened to our episode where we revisited the 2018 draft, and I was talking about watching Craig Button on air and TSN say the Ottawa Senators have to defer and try to get that pick in 2019, that emphasizes why I was so rattled about that even more, because the draft classes are so far apart that unless the Sens were going to get first or maybe even unless the Sens were going to win first, which ironically they finished dead last that year, so they had the best opportunity to do so. However, it didn't work out. That would not have been the right move. So, I mean, hindsight's 2020, obviously, but yeah, it's certainly a good thing things shaked out the way they did.
And that's just the first round, the top 10, which we will redraft at the end of today's show. But from a Senators perspective, it was almost as exciting, almost, I say with like 20 T's at the end, because it wasn't, having the first overall pick of the second round, 32nd overall. And apparently there were plenty of phone calls, other teams wanting to move to get that pick because guys like Arthur Kaliyev, Bobby Brink, Shane Pinto, who was ultimately the pick for Ottawa, was right there. So we'll discuss that and the rest of the Senators draft class next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. It's that simple. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need, but at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Check it out today, guys. eBay Motors.
Welcome back. It is a feel-good Friday here on LOSP. Coming up on Monday, we'll have Sean Furfaro back on the show, a friend of the show from the Kitchener Rangers. Ottawa selecting Luke Ellenis from them this draft and Matthew Andonovski last year. They've also got a pair of former Kitchener Rangers, so it'll be fun to catch up with Sean Furfaro. But right now we're talking about that 2019 draft. The top 10 was a top 10, but there were still some notable players just after. Matt Boldy comes to mind at 12th overall. Like, when we get to the redraft, he is going to take a huge leap forward.
Yeah, Ross, and that's the guy that just signed a big ticket to stay in Minnesota. So that was a good pick. I've always really liked Minnesota's draft strategy, apart from maybe, what was it, 2 years ago where they took Charlie Stramel. Yeah, that was a bit of a whiff there. But overall, I feel like every year, Ross, the Minnesota Wild and Winnipeg Jets, when I look at their overall draft classes, I'm like, man, they nailed it. They got great value. So Minnesota, that remains true with this draft.
Second in points, just behind Jack Hughes. And by the way, Jack Hughes, sure, he's played the most games. Pillsy, he's got 110-point cushion on the next best player of this draft. Yeah, I can see how wide your eyes are. The difference between him and number 2 would put him like 10th overall in the draft class.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's crazy. Yeah. And I've never been a Capo Caco guy. So when the Rangers took him, that was a bit of a head scratcher for me. But it has kind of worked out for them because they've needed some guys to fill out the rest of the roster, especially with the big moves they made for their top 6. But second overall didn't really boost them the way he was supposed to. Especially it took a little time for him to kind of find his way in New York.
So let's get to the Senators draft class. We'll get back to our top 10 and where Capo Caco lands on it. And this is one of those situations where you just cannot look at what happened in front of you. You cannot control that. And with with the 18th overall pick, the Dallas Stars took Thomas Harley, who just had a 40-point season. He's really finding his role as a top 4 NHL defenseman. Then it was Lassie Thompson, again, with that pick acquired for Matt Duchene in that trade. They take Lassie Thompson, who just signed in Malmo in the SHL, had 4 seasons, is like second all-time in Belleville Sens games played behind Igor Sokolov, but it just did not work out in the NHL. Even got claimed off waivers by Anaheim. Fresh start, same result. He's back in Europe. But looking right behind it, Pillsy, like immediately behind it, the easy comparable is the Finnish defenseman that goes the next pick. And Heinola is an interesting one in Winnipeg where the fans are clamoring. It's a lot like the Eric Brandstrom debate in Ottawa, where it's like, is he going to take the next step? And injuries held him back there, but it's not like you look right behind here and go, oh man, they just passed on such a talent.
Yeah, there's really none here, Ross. Like,
Like Philip Tomasino and Connor McMichael would be like, they would be ahead of Lassie in a redraft. Some of these other guys would too, but they're not like, oh my goodness, how did we miss this?
yeah. Sorry, I should have specified that. Yeah, because those are two good players. But yeah, there's no eye-popping, can't believe they didn't get these guys.
With the Senators on the clock at 19, if they took the best available player with what we know now, their pick would be Shane Pinto, who Ottawa took 32.
Yes, agreed.
So
Definitely.
with that, Ottawa still looks like they make out half decent, where they are able to, with the first pick in the second round, take Shane Pinto. So shout out to Elite Prospects for having this all set up and easy if you're watching on YouTube. But Ottawa not only had 32nd, but they also had 37th overall in this draft, where they selected Mads Sogard. So how do you think the Senators did with what was available? Pyotr Kochetkov, who's played 69 games, and really his low light comes against Ottawa in my eyes, where he went and took out Brady's feet on a penalty shot situation or a shootout, where I thought that was a bit gutless, but still an enigmatic goalie, I'll say, but one where you can see the potential surely in the National Hockey League. What do you think about the goaltending situation and how Ottawa went back-to-back goalies after the Kochetkov was the second goalie in the draft after Spencer Knight was a first rounder, and then boom, bang, bang, two goalies right there.
Well, Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Sens trade up?
They traded up, correct.
Yeah,
So I
because
guess
they saw Kochetkov go, and they're thinking, oh man, the goalie train is going to roll here. We got to trade up to get our guy.
And it didn't, because the next goalie after that wasn't taken until 59th overall. But good theory.
I don't. Do you have that trade in front of you? I kind of forget how it went, because who knows? Maybe that team would have selected Sogard though.
Yeah, I mean, maybe exactly. It does feel like kind of a Carolina type pick, or no, Carolina would have had the option. So
Yeah.
I don't know who the trade was with to move picks. I
think it might have been the Oilers. I swear it was just one spot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could be wrong. But yeah, I think that was a good move for the Sens. They were looking for a blue chip goalie prospect. I
got it. And funny enough, it includes another Ottawa Senator. So that pick was actually the Rangers initially traded to the Hurricanes in the Adam Fox trade. And then Ottawa traded 44th and 83 for 37. So they moved up more spots. They moved up 7 spots. But guess who was picked 44th? You can see right there.
Jamison Reese. Yeah.
Belleville
wow.
Senators forward, Jamison Reese. So funny how that all worked out. But I look at this as, wow, Shane Pinto was an unbelievable pick in this spot, with Arthur Kaliev having one more career point in 48 more games. Bobby Brink, I still think he'll be a decent player, but at the time, that was not a popular decision.
No, I agree, Ross. I think everyone was looking at that 32 overall and was thinking, all right, are the Sens going to go for Kaliev or Brink? And I don't think people had really penciled in Shane Pinto in that spot yet. It was kind of between those two. And then when the Sens picked Pinto, you're like, we know Kaliev and Brink are going the next 2 picks, which they did.
Yeah.
But back to Mads Sogard, did the Sens have Gustafsson at that time? They would have, right?
Correct. They would have gotten him during this season.
So I think they were looking to get a 1-2 punch of blue chip prospects, kind of push each other and try to get that spot. So I think when you're looking at this, you've already got Shane Pinto. So Mads Sogard is a nice pick there. And that's a guy you're looking at, 6'7" Danish goalie. And you're like, we got to have him. So they wanted to move up for sure.
And they did. So Ottawa got at 37th overall, Mads Sogard. The next big pick after that they quote unquote could have missed on was Niels Höglander, who's already played 221 games, 90 points with the Vancouver Canucks. And then at 43rd overall, Alex Vlasic starting to find himself in a nice career and groove with the Chicago Blackhawks. He got a nice little contract extension from them. You got to keep scrolling a ways away for Ottawa's next pick. At the start of the 4th round, the Ottawa Senators selected Victor Lodin, who got into one NHL game. Unfortunate, because you can certainly see the skill that was there for Lodin.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate, Ross. But I mean, you look down this list and
Jordan Spence would have been so nice. Right shot D. My
Matthias
guy.
Maccelli.
So good, man. So good. 112 points in 169 games.
On a bad team too. Like that's pretty impressive. So I think Maccelli would have been the guy that you're hoping to target there, especially Victor Lodin, skilled European forward. Maccelli fits the same bill.
Yeah, I do like how when you put them together like that, it's easy to kind of get a sense of what they mean in terms of the scouting community. Like, would it be realistic for them to be a pick there? Now, Ottawa did well with their next one at 125th overall. They were able to get an NHLer, which at this point in the draft, you're trying to find guys who will play NHL games. And with that pick, they selected Mark Kastelik, first pick of the 5th round. And as you can see here, like, did anyone? No. One other player in the 5th round of that draft class, Ratu probably, because he's the older brother of Ratu. One NHL game outside of him, and he played 144 so far. So that's a great find for the Ottawa Senators scouting staff there.
Yeah, it was good value. And
look, nobody from picks 115 to 159, 115 to 159. He's the only guy with more than one NHL game, more than 10 NHL games.
And he's got 144 of them.
Yeah.
And Casti in the 5th round, that's a nice pick because you're looking for guys that you can see playing a bottom 6 role in the NHL one day. And he was a staple in that spot for a couple of years. So best of luck to him in Boston. It just didn't really work out anymore here with the Sens, but that's good value, especially when you compare it to the rest of the draft.
And they do it again later on in the 7th round. Ottawa didn't have a 6th rounder, and then they go out and get Maxence Guenette, first pick in the 7th round, 187th overall. And like, I know he's only played 8 NHL games, but he's an AHL All-Star and a staple on the blue line as a right shot guy. So I think that they did some really good scouting here, especially when you look at the players taken behind him. Just Raphael Harvey-Pinard, a great pick by Montreal, 201 overall, who's played 83 games and already has 31 points, which almost surprises me when I see those numbers. I still think the Sens did pretty well in this spot.
Yeah, definitely. I like considering they're a rebuilding team and they finish dead last and they don't get a pick in the top 10 because of the Matt Duchene trade and picking Brady before. Overall, this is a fairly nice, tidy piece of business considering.
I do think it's a good lead in to what the 2020 draft was. I don't know what happened after that with just their strategy, because it felt like the same core scouts that made all these great diamond in the rough picks later on, getting Mark Kastelik at 125, getting Max Guenette at 187, not to mention Shane Pinto at 32. I think that leads perfectly into our redraft, where we're going to see just how high does Shane Pinto move up from number 32, as we are an unbiased Senators podcast. All right, that's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. I love sports. Ross loves sports so much that we're looking back at a draft from 5 years ago. We love sports so much we never want them to stop. But the playoffs in NBA and NHL are over. It's baseball time, and I want more sports. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the FanDuel app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily, not just new customers. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. I'm making sure I'm getting my baseball bets in. I've got my sights set on my future bets in the NHL, NFL, and NBA, and you should do the same. So head over to fanduel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
All right, Pillsy, final segment here, Locked On Senators 2019 NHL Draft look back, where we are redrafting the top 10 of this class. And we get to number 1. I think it's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, nothing changes. Jack Hughes.
Nothing changes. It is
1-1.
Jack Hughes. 1-1, first overall pick. That is a no-brainer. He is probably a bigger gap between him and the next guy than anywhere else in this class redrafted.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely.
So that means the draft starts at number 2. Who is it for you if we're redoing it from what we know now?
Well, people are probably going to get mad at this list, and especially our friends of the Atlantic Division might get mad at this list, but I got Matt Boldy as the second guy in this draft. And Ross, I don't know if you want to push back on that or how you feel about that, but that's where I decided to go.
No, that's my choice as well. And I look, Moritz Seider's right there for me, but I just look at what Matt Boldy's offensive potential is as a 6'4" winger who can play down low, score, shoot, pass. I just think that he's kind of got that all around play that's going to help drive a line night in, night out in the top 6. So I slightly lead there than a guy who goes up against really tough competition. He's a great player. I mean, we're talking about a top 3 in a redraft, so you're going to have a lot of talent here. I just think that what you get separating wise is the offensive game-changing ability for Matt Boldy.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to have the discussion, but Boldy is ahead for both of us. Next, I got Dylan Cousins in that 4th spot. I think he's been a really good player for the Buffalo Sabres. He's a guy that shined with Team Canada and the World Juniors. I believe he was captain, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah, so he's had success on the international level as well. Obviously, Buffalo not able to make it into the playoffs. But Dylan Cousins, I think, was a great pick for them there.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dylan Cousins is a no-brainer in the top 5. This is where it gets interesting. You've got Cole Caulfield here at number 5. To me, him and Trevor Zegras is a bit of a toss-up.
Yeah, I thought it was a toss-up too, but I think Caulfield just adds a little bit more to his game than Zegras does. But again, that's one of those, if Ducks fans are upset about it, they can push back, and I would hear those arguments, and I would have no issues moving a Montreal Canadiens player lower on my list.
So Bowen Byram, another division rival now after being traded from Colorado to Buffalo. So basically, if we're looking back, Ottawa gave up the 7th best player of that draft class for Matt Duchene, but still, it almost felt like in Colorado, he was always stuck on that left side behind such talented players that we'll see in the next 2-3 years what kind of player Bowen Byram can really be. And he had some concussion problems, but it does look like that's behind him as well. So we want to see him playing and see what he can do with all left shot defensemen in Buffalo. What could go wrong?
Yeah, we've seen that. It works great. Good luck.
Yeah. So, but good player, good guy. Bowen Byram at 7. This is where we're putting Shane Pinto. People can push back. I know Capo Caco's had more longevity, but Shane Pinto, to me, the upside is, I think we're putting him in a fair spot here. I'm curious what non-Sens fans would say. We know he hasn't had necessarily the longest track record with the injury, the suspension, but when you watch this guy play, he's just a game changer out there at both ends of the ice.
Yeah, he's so good in the face-off dot. He's a two-way guy. We reference it with one of our Sens Central citizens, but that connection he has with G on the power play and being able to snap it from that bumper spot. And then we talk about it with our guy Sens prospects. His hand-eye coordination, tipping pucks in front of the net is also very impressive. So I like Shane Pinto where we have him. I don't think that's our bias shining through too much here.
Capo Caco, what can he? It almost feels like he's kind of stuck in New York, right? It's almost like what's going to happen next for Capo Caco. Only 19 points last year, Pills. He gave us the old Dominic Kubalik stat line, 13 goals, 6 assists, so doubling the output. And to me, there's too many good playmakers on the New York Rangers for him to not be able to put up more points. And had opportunity, played over 13 minutes a game. That's a tough stat line after it felt like he was finally breaking out, right? In his 4th season. Last year at 40 points, played all 82 games, but a bit of regression for him. But 300 games, man, that's a lot already for a 2019 pick.
Yeah, definitely. I was kind of surprised the Rangers didn't move on from Capo Caco yet, Ross, but I think mutually beneficial for them to kind of just see him where he's at as a bottom 6 guy, and maybe he liked the situation there and wanted to stay there. But yeah, not my guy.
No. And then to round out the top 10, we've got Alex Newhook. And I think, he was an early 2nd round pick, but he's a guy who I just think is, if he can stay healthy, you're probably feeling pretty good about having him in your system like the Montreal Canadiens decided to do. Sorry, he wasn't a second. Where did
Newhook
he
was
go?
16th overall. Yeah.
16th. Okay, sorry. I knew when I said that doesn't say. He was traded for 2 early seconds. That's what it was. When Montreal got him, they gave up 2 early seconds right before the draft. But Newhook, 16th overall. He's got the Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. So we'll see. He's another guy where you want to see him stay healthy, just like Kirby Dach. Those are 2 big X factors in what Montreal is trying to do here coming up.
Yeah, and if things go well, I think they can really have an impactful season over in Montreal, especially with how young that team is, and at least Kirby or Alex Newhook has that playoff experience. So nice. I think that was a good trade for both teams.
And Kirby Dach, like if he played, he'd be on this list in the top 10. Skill wise, he's there, but
Agreed.
Only 2 games this year, 58 last year, 38 points, and only played 20 or only had 26 points his last year in Chicago. So the skill's there. Let's just see if he can piece it together. And when we look back at this in years to come, who knows? Maybe Kirby Dach is one of the top 10 players in this draft class. But that's the way we've got it right now. Senators end up with the 8th best player in this draft class for our money 5 years later. And that after Ottawa gives away a top 5 pick. So fun to look back at that. We're going to leave it there because 4 years, it's still a developing situation. Example, Tyler Kleven. This could be a big year for him. He was a 2020 pick, so we'll see next summer where we have him and the Ottawa Senators' unreal haul in that class. Pillsy, another great show. Really enjoying this summer content. We've only got a few more weeks of it, though, as September is just around the corner, I say, as we're halfway there in the month.
Yeah, 3 shows a week, but we're going to keep the content going and we're going to keep having good guests. It's Sens Central Citizen season. So if you guys want to get on the show, let us know. This is the time to do it for sure. And we're going to keep pumping out some good content for you.
Looking forward to next season and next show Monday with Sean Furfaro. For today, we say goodbye for Brandon Pillar. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.